Hi there, I'm Dave, and this is day 3 of my 30-day talking to a camera challenge. So I'm on a roll for 3 days in a row. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my backgrounds for my hobbies of writing fiction and poetry as well as drawing. I mentioned those a little bit in my first video, but I'm going to go just a little more backgrounds in those today. So first up is writing fiction and poetry. That started when I was younger, and my grandparents had a bookstore, which was really cool to grow up and work in a bookstore. It was called Gingerbread Square Books, and it was in a town called Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. That is a small town in southern Delaware. It's coastal, and it's small, like I said, but it gets quite crowded with tourists in the summer. They're there to, of course, enjoy, the beach and the ocean, but there's also a really nice boardwalk, actual wooden boardwalk. It's not concrete, and there's lots of shops and restaurants, an amusement park that's quite popular, and that's called Funland. It's still there, still entertaining kids and kids at heart. The bookstore is no longer there, unfortunately. It was sold in, I would say, late 90s. Old Victorian house, really cool. That's still there. And it had the gingerbread part, I think, is trying to remember how to describe it. The decorative wooden parts underneath, say, a railing, and my grandfather made those. He was a carpenter as one of his hobbies, and that was what he named the place after, for Gingerbread Square Books. And having that bookstore gave me access to many books. I mean, the library was down the street, but the bookstore just added to that. I mean, just look, it wasn't a huge place, not like, say an outlet store now, like, say, Barnes & Noble, but it was, it had more books to offer, and I soaked that up. I read picture books, comic books, chapter books, worked my way up to novels. That's the reading journey that I hope people enjoy, and I loved it. I loved reading. When I read, I felt transported into the world inside the book. I was in a different time, a place. I saw that world through the main character's eyes, and it was amazing. I thought it was magical how I could, start reading in a book, get immersed in that world, and then come out of that world. Sometimes disappointedly, of like, oh, I want another page, another chapter. I don't want to leave the book so soon. But it has, of course, had other stuff going on of chores and homework and working at the bookstore. Other stuff going on. But when I thought about stuff that I wanted to do when I grew up, like just a writer, that idea came naturally to mind. If I could try to create that kind of magic where I write a book and get immersed in it while I'm writing, but if that also gives that effect on somebody else, a reader, how amazing would that be? No, I don't write full time. Like I said, it is a hobby, but I have finished several books that I've put together. I self-published those. I'm not going to go into detail in this video. That can wait for another video. So that's writing, and then let's move on to drawing. Sorry, I had to look at my notes here. I know all this stuff. I mean, I've lived it, but I get kind of sidetracked in this, kind of still a bit uncomfortable with talking to the camera. It's still, used to a conversation with FaceTime or what have you, or Zoom. So drawing. That was also something I loved to do as a kid. You know, it's probably like most kids. You know, you get some crayons, pencils, pen, whatever, and you just draw whatever comes to mind. Um, Comic books were a big inspiration too. Of look how cool that stuff is in the comic books, and now let me try to draw it. And you know, didn't come close to it, but it was nice to try. My mom is also really into art, and she encouraged my brother and me to draw, be creative, have fun with it, and so we did. Except then, became a teenager, and just life happens. I moved on to other stuff. Didn't draw as much as I used to before then, and then just stopped drawing. Went on to other things. Until then, when I was 30, my twin daughters were born, and when they got older, eventually, they get into drawing. I encouraged them, just passing that love down. Same with reading. My wife and I read to them, and loved it, reading picture books to them, and then encouraging them to pick up crayons and markers and whatever else, and express yourself, have fun, let's see what comes out. And for me, it was, I guess you could say, also another kind of magic, because I saw how much fun they were having it, and then I clicked and like, hey, I used to do that. I could do that again. What's stopping me is nothing, myself. Not nothing, because I was stopping myself. So I picked up, some crayons or markers and color pencils, and I gave it a go, and it's been amazing to kind of rediscover that joy of it. And my daughters are now in their early 20s, and I still draw. It's still fun to do. And I've as far as combining the two with writing and drawing, it's been neat to go into videos. You can check out my channel for some of the videos that I've created. Pretty recently, I did a video based on a short story I wrote many years ago. It's called Three Detectives, and it has, let's see, Edgar Allan Poe as a character, Agatha Christie, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. They're actually the characters in the story as they try to they investigate a crime, a missing blue diamond necklace. So like I said, I wrote that several years ago, and then as I'm looking towards material that I've already created and forming those into videos, I put that together and released it, I think, just last week, and it was really neat, seeing that story in a kind of different way, a different format. It was neat to do. So I'm learning video and animation. It's and this is just, to me, a part of the journey of getting better about talking to the camera. Yeah, I think that really, as far as it brings us up to speed, without going into tons and tons of detail, about writing and drawing. And speaking of drawing, that's another part of the challenge, is to draw each day with these videos. So we're going to draw. And since this is, I guess, a little bit about my background, the collar's a bit roughed up there. Anyway, so this is about, my background. Might as well draw myself. It's not too narcissistic, is it? I don't know. So I went to the library today, and so I'll just draw myself walking home from the library. Start with, let's do a little simple cartoony kind of style. So we got two eyes. Nose, is that coming up right? It's kind of tricky to do this. Nose, let's do a swoopy hair. I don't know if it's that swoopy. Let's do a ear, mouth, the beard around. Used to be more red, now there's a whole lot of white hairs coming in there. Okay, neck, probably bigger head than body. Maybe I should have started up more, but who cares? It's just happening. Little shirts. Like I said, it doesn't have to be detailed. Shoe. I don't know why I'm sticking this one out. I didn't walk like this, but you know. Anyway. So a little upper and then elbow down, way out of proportion. But it's a quick job. That is not really how to, but you know, there. Sidewalk. Let's draw me in a scenario. And since, sorry, it didn't quite as expected, you know, and that happens a lot with drawing and stuff. It just doesn't, sometimes it just doesn't come out, you know, as you imagine it, and it's being okay with that. So let's do here a bird. Doesn't look the greatest, but yeah, he's flying. He's zooming past me. Maybe he's on his way to get some books, you know, because he sees my book and he's like, yeah, let's grab a book too, you know, something on birds, the identification guide to birds, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, that is the finished drawing for today, and that brings us up, oh my gosh, to almost 12 minutes. So, all right, if you made it this far into the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day.